Okay, hi everybody. Today we're going to talk about double system audio recording, also sometimes called dual system audio recording, and syncing workflows in Premiere. So first of all, what does double system recording mean? It basically just means that you're recording your video and your audio on separate devices. So I have a Tascam audio recorder, or maybe you have a Zoom, and I have a camera. Now I know that some of you this semester are, because of our equipment limitations, potentially using like shotgun mics that you mount on the camera. There is a way to get audio into one of these DSLR or mirrorless style cameras. It's not super reliable. You need to be very careful, make sure you test and you're monitoring closely. But it's also not ideal because the microphone, as we talked about on the first day of class, can't get very close to the subject. So if you're shooting an interview this way, you should probably go with a wide angle lens and get as close to the subject as possible, just to make sure that your mic is as close as possible. Now that shotgun mic mounted on top of the camera is still going to be better than the camera audio because at least that microphone is somewhat directional and it's probably a better quality mic. But most of the time, most of you all should and will be using double system or dual system audio recording where you have a separate microphone, either a lav or a shotgun mic, connected to an audio recorder that is not attached to your camera. And then you end up with two different files or potentially sets of files in post-production. And so then you have to sync those files before you can begin editing. And let me be very clear, you should sync them before you begin editing. Do not cut together something just based on the camera audio and then expect to be able to go back and sync it later. That's going to be a recipe for disaster. There is more than one way to sync your audio in Premiere, and I'm going to talk about that. But this is also a production decision you need to make. It's sort of a strategic decision. Like, for example, when you're on set and when you're recording, should you be stopping the audio recorder every time you stop with the camera? Maybe. It depends on the situation. It specifically depends on how much control you have over your environment. Or should you be letting the audio recorder go continuously and then syncing multiple video clips to the one audio clip? Again, it depends. And then based on how you sync in Premiere, there's going to be a couple different options for workflows that will get you to a finished product. And in this case, it does depend on how you sync things, but it also somewhat depends on your personal preference and what makes sense to you in terms of how you like to edit. So that's what this video is going to cover, sort of an overview of the strategy for recording audio separately from video in the field, and then how you sync and the workflows to get you to a finished product. Okay, so first question that I asked at the top, when you're going into production, should you try to get one audio file for each video file, i.e. stopping the audio recorder after each take of video, or should you leave the audio recorder going? And the answer is that when possible, if you have control over your environment, try to get one audio file for every video file, because that will make your life a whole lot easier in post-production. So just to give you an example, here I have the beginning of a take from one of our advanced fiction films a couple years ago. So let's watch how this works.
Leads.
Scene 3, shot A, take 1.
Okay, so why do they do it this way? I mean, you guys have all seen slates before. The reason is because, not just so that it looks cool, but because you have this information, scene 3, shot A, take 1, which tells you exactly what's being shot here and will correspond to documentation that's being made by the script supervisor on set. You have that information. If I were just looking at this video, even if it had no audio at all, I would have that information and know where to put it. And then also the PA that's slating is saying that information out loud so that on the audio file, we hear that information as well. So we can always find these two clips and put them together so we know that they're supposed to be together, even if somehow they get separated in post-production. The second thing is the actual marker right there, which gives us a sync point, both visually and in the audio file, for where they are supposed to sync up. Now, until a few years ago, you had to do this manually. You had to go into the video file, set an endpoint when you actually see the two things come together, set an out point, set an endpoint in the audio clip when you hear the sound of the clap. Now, most of the time, Premiere is good enough where it can just analyze the waveforms and put them together, which saves us all a lot of time. However, One thing I'd recommend is that when you're doing an interview, even though you won't have a slate, you should still do something to help you sync and post, just in case your camera audio isn't good enough to sync, or maybe in case you forgot to have the microphone on the camera, for example, which always happens to somebody in the class. So you start your camera rolling, you start your audio recorder rolling, and then put your hands in front of the camera where they can be seen and heard, and clap 3 times. That way, worst case scenario, you get back to the computer and you have a silent video file, you can still use endpoints to manually sync up with the audio. Okay, so this is the way it's done on a fiction set, which means that when possible, we should do it on a nonfiction set. And when possible basically means with interviews, because that's when we have the most controlled environment. Oh, look, that's me making this tutorial for you. All right, so let's use a different example. Here's an interview that this was a quick thing where this interview subject said, hey, I've got one more thing I want to say. And so we literally just threw the camera on the shoulder and recorded this, 40-second clip. And you can see here that these two things go together. I like to have this media duration column visible when I'm doing any syncing work so that I can see, okay, these two things are close to the same length, so they probably do go together. I didn't do any sort of clap sync like I just talked about, so hopefully the audio is good enough for us just to sync them automatically. If you have a video clip and an audio clip that go together and that they are roughly the same duration, so there's not any other video clips that go with this audio clip or not any other audio clips that go with the video clip, they're sort of monogamous, then that's perfect. That is the simplest situation you can have. So let's just highlight both of them. Let's right click and let's go to merge clips. This will bring up this dialog box. If you know that the audio, the sort of automatic syncing isn't going to work, this is when you would select endpoints, and you should have put an endpoint on your clap or whatever, and that's how you would do that. But hopefully you'll be able to do it with audio. And then this checkbox removes the camera audio from the resulting clip, which does simplify things, unless for some reason you need that as a backup or something like that. I'm going to leave it checked in this case. So I'm going to do that. It makes a new merge clip down here. I don't want that to be on my root level, so I'm going to go here. I'm going to make a new bin for merge clips. By the way, this is how I organize my projects. You don't have to do it exactly like this, but if this were like one project, I would have a media bin, unsynced clips, merge clips, sequences, etc. Okay, so merge clips, let's throw this and see what we've got, and there we go. And if we open this up, I need to move this here. Matt interview. Okay, so if we open up this merge clip in the source monitor, and this is usually a good thing. If you see black at the beginning, then that's probably right, because usually the audio recorder starts recording a little bit before the video. And then they'll both come on. And here we go. And I can do 3-point editing just like I would with any other clip. And when you were doing the Marissa project, this is basically what you had, 4 merged clips that I just exported for you. So you had video and audio together, and it's almost as if you had recorded the audio into the camera now. So merged clips is the simplest way to do it. Now, if that's the simplest way, why would we ever want to do anything else? And the answer is that maybe you have a situation in which you don't have as good a control over your environment, and you don't have the ability to think constantly about turning on and off the audio recorder or stopping and starting the recording. I'll show you an example of a scene from my current film project. This is something where I was filming a professor teaching a class. So this is a set duration. What this shoot is 1 hour and 40 minutes long. And throughout this, I was doing a lot of different things. I mean, I was recording him, but then I was also turning around and recording cutaways and reaction shots and getting little inserts of people, writing. Part of the class, he's over on this whiteboard, then he moves back to the other whiteboard. So there's some things going on here that I can't control. I'm moving all around the classroom throughout the scene. And then at the end, they are working, and he's going around talking to them. And then I got to a point where, I felt like I had enough, so I just stopped recording. And then at the end, I ended up doing a little bit of an interview with him. Okay, so this is 1 hour and 40 minutes. Some of these clips are really short, and it wouldn't work well to do merged clips. I'll show you an example in a second. But also, it's just really helpful. I think, to have the whole chronology of the shoot visualized so that I can remember, like, okay, this is what happened and this is the order in which it happened, and I can kind of orient myself in time and space. And instead of clicking on what would be, I don't know, let's call it 15, 20 different clips, which is not that substantial, but it could be a bigger scene. It could be 50 clips shot over 3 hours. I don't know. And instead of having to click on each one, I can kind of scan through the sequence pretty quickly to get a sense of what my material is. So this is a situation in which instead of a clip-based workflow with multi-clips, I might choose to do a sequence-based syncing workflow where I sync everything on a sequence and then I copy paste from this sequence onto another sequence that I'm building, like my rough cut sequence. So those are my terms, like clip-based workflow versus a sequence-based workflow. Those, you won't see that in a textbook or anything. That's the way that I think of it, but I think they're two totally legitimate workflows depending on how you want to sync. All right, so let's say that you shot an observational sequence like this. How would you go about syncing it up? Well, I will tell you the way that I did it, which is cheating a little bit, but that's to use a plugin called Pluralize. And it's really sweet. All you have to do is open it up and have your sequence open. Make sure that you have your audio files on a different track from your video files, and then hit the synchronize button. And that's what it'll spit this out after it thinks about it. And it'll even color code things pink if it can't match it up via audio. So here are some like establishing shots that I took from outside the class. So obviously it's not going to find any audio that it can sync up here, so it color codes them pink. Let's use a slightly less intense example that might be more similar to something that you would shoot. Here are 4 clips of a friend of mine painting, and this is a similar kind of thing where I don't have complete control over the environment. Sometimes he's painting and I'm shooting that. Other times he turns around and talks to me. And I don't know always exactly when he's going to be talking, or maybe he might even say something unprompted, and I want to be able to record all that, so it's not like I can just, turn the recorder on and off between questions or, for every video file. This is, let's see, so I have one audio file that I left going the whole time. This is 27 minutes long, and this is only a part of this shoot that I just pulled to show you this, and maybe 17, 18 minutes worth of video content. So let's say that we wanted to synchronize this. Well, a couple things. 2 ways to do it, both are cumbersome. One, we could do merge clips for each individual clip. Unfortunately, you can't merge multiple clips yet. I hope they make that a feature at some point. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. It's going to think about it a bit. It's going to give me a merged clip. Is this it? Put that in my merge clips folder. But look, this video clip that I merged here is only 55 seconds long. This is a 27-minute long audio clip. So this is just not very feasible. Now I could sort of cheat here. I could go and I could match frame and set an input in my source, and then I could go and match frame. I could go and I could match frame here and put an output in my source. And then I would have up here, an in and an out point around the actual video content, and then the rest would be, black. But this defeats the purpose of, what an in and an out is for, which is to use it for 3-point editing. So I don't like this, and sometimes, in this situation, if you have really short clips in a really long audio file, it won't be able to match them, even if the audio is good. I feel kind of lucky that this one was able to be matched, but sometimes it won't work. So let's say that I wanted to do kind of like I did on the other one, which is a sequence-based workflow. And I've got these 4 audio clips, and I want to lay them out and sync them to this, and then be able to copy-paste into another sequence from here. There is a feature called Synchronize, and I can do, and unfortunately, again, it's only 1 clip at a time. I can highlight my audio, and I can highlight my 1 video clip, and I can go Synchronize, and it'll say, okay. And there you go. So how do I do this for the rest of them? Well, this is cumbersome. I'm not saying it's not, but if you want to do this, Option, drag to copy this. Hang on, I need to select further back. Option, drag. Okay, and make a copy of your audio file, one copy of your audio file for every video file. Okay, and now I can highlight this, synchronize, okay, highlight this, synchronize, okay, highlight this, synchronize, okay. And then make sure that you have snapping on, this icon here, the magnet, and then grab both audio and video. Make sure that the audio, beginning of the audio clips lines up. Boom. Highlight all this. Boom. Highlight all this. Boom. Highlight all this. Okay, now I have a sequence. Now this is not elegant. It is a workaround. It is not ideal. Again, let me just emphasize that. So why would you ever want to do it? Well, like with the other one I was talking about with this class, it may be beneficial for you to have the whole scene laid out in front of you. And some of you will I prefer this kind of editing where I can see everything rather than clicking individually on a bunch of clips in the project panel. And then I use primarily copy and paste to pull selects from this full synced sequence into, say, a rough cut or a string out or that kind of thing. If you choose to do that, one word to the wise. Let's say that I find a quote that I really like here, okay, and I'm going to do my in and out, and I'm going to, let me make a mistake on purpose here. I'm going to Command C to copy this, and then I'm going to go into sequences here. Oh, I don't have my sequence in the right place. Shame on me. I don't even know where it is. Oh, there it is. So I might say Josh painting synced. Okay. And maybe I'll duplicate this and I'll say Josh painting rough cut. Something like that. I duplicate so that I make sure that my sequence settings are correct. All right, so let's say that I have this clip that I really like. I'm going to copy and I'm going to come and I'm going to paste it over here. Now, you probably noticed it didn't bring my synced audio. So it's absolutely crucial, and this will make you pull your hair out. It's absolutely crucial that you make sure that all your audio track selectors are selected before you hit copy, and then go over here and then paste, and then you can start building your sequence that way. The other thing that I will mention here is that be careful if you choose to do this workflow. If you go full screen and then come back, it can, and then you go and you say that you get a different thing, and I go full screen and I come back and I copy and I go over here and I paste. For whatever reason, you have to reestablish, you have to click again on the timeline before you copy to make sure that you're getting the new clip that you want. Otherwise, if you go straight from full screen back to the here and copy, it won't copy the new clip, and you'll be stuck with the same clip on the clipboard. So you have two copies of the same thing. So that has happened to me a bunch of times when I've been pulling selects from a scene, is that I end up with multiple copies of the same thing in a row because I was going full screen. So just something to watch out for. And then lastly, be careful with this because these things can obviously still be knocked out of sync. With the merge clips, that's not the case, right? Going back up here to this, here these guys are merged. They're together. They're not going to be knocked out of sync. Okay, so I think that's basically it. We have two ways of syncing. We can either do merge clips or we can use the synchronize feature on the timeline. And we have two workflows. We have clip-based and we have sequence-based. The difference between each one is you want to use, if you can control your environment, you want to use clip-based workflows, ideally, using multi-clips. And that means that you have to be stopping the audio recorder every time you stop the video camera so that you have one-to-one correspondence between video clips and audio files. If, however, you have an observational scene where you don't have full control of your environment and you have to leave the audio recorder running continuously throughout, consider a sequence-based workflow where, even though it's sort of tedious, you use the synchronize feature to get everything laid out on the timeline so that you can see the whole thing and then copy and paste from there into other sequences. All right, that's it. If you have any questions, let me know.